Welcome, dear viewers. Thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers. It means a lot. Become a member of Dr. Void family at just 99 cents per month and get exclusive episodes every week. They're going to come looking for me soon, I can feel it. The surveillance van has been parked across the street for 3 days now. They don't even try to hide it anymore. I need to get this down before they take me, before they silence me. The things I saw at S4. Christ, I still wake up screaming some nights. The containment protocols, the bodies, those fucking things in the chambers. People need to know the truth. My name is Vance Keller, and until 6 weeks ago, I was a level 4 security technician at what the government calls Site S4, a facility nestled against the Papoose mountain range just south of the main Area 51 complex. The public thinks it's where they keep the UFOs. The conspiracy theorists have it all wrong. What's stored at S4 isn't from outer space. It's much worse. I started working there 2 years ago after 8 years in the Air Force. Special clearance, hefty salary, and a non-disclosure agreement that basically said they owned my soul if I ever breathed a word about what I saw. I didn't care. The money was good, and I needed to support my kid brother Miles after our parents died. The job seemed straightforward at first. Monitor security systems, maintain containment protocols, report anomalies. The facility was shaped like a massive underground wheel, a central hub with 8 radiating corridors, each housing what they called specimens. We weren't supposed to look at them directly, just check readouts, verify system integrity, follow the goddamn rules. Those rules were posted everywhere, drilled into us during orientation, taped to every monitor. I can still recite them from memory. Site S4 containment protocols. Never enter containment sectors during sleep cycle, 2300 to 0500. Always maintain eye contact with specimens when they are active. No electronic devices in containment zones. Report all dreams to your supervisor. Always move clockwise through facility corridors. Never speak directly to specimens. If lights flicker, exit immediately. Simple rules. Just follow them and everyone stays safe. That's what they told us. I followed them religiously. For 2 years, I did exactly what I was supposed to do. Then I got curious. I started asking questions. Why can't we enter during sleep cycles? Why report our dreams? Why the hell are we keeping these things alive? Director Hayward didn't like my questions. He transferred me to night shift monitoring. That's when things started happening. That's when I realized what we were really dealing with at S4. I'm writing this as a warning. If you ever get recruited for special security operations in Nevada, run. If you ever hear about biological anomalies in government facilities, don't believe the cover story, and if you ever see a perfectly circular shadow that doesn't match its source, get the fuck away from it. They're not aliens, they're something much older, and they're waking up. My first night shift started like any other transfer, paperwork, new access codes, and the usual bullshit about maintaining operational security. I should have known something was off when my new supervisor, Larson, handed me the modified rulebook. Night protocols are different, he said, not meeting my eyes. Read this carefully. Memorize it. Your life depends on it. Larson was a tall, gaunt man with perpetually bloodshot eyes and a nervous habit of cracking his knuckles. He'd been working nights for 6 years, which was apparently some kind of record. Most night shift personnel requested transfers after 3 months. Now I understood why. The night protocol had 3 additional rules. If you hear your name called, do not respond. Keep 1 light source on your person at all times. If the temperature drops suddenly, recite your ID number aloud. What happens if the temperature drops and I don't recite my ID? I asked. Larson's face twitched. We lost Donovan that way last month. Just follow the rules. He wouldn't elaborate further, just led me through the security checkpoints toward the central monitoring hub. The facility looked different at night. The fluorescent lights hummed at a lower frequency, casting everything in a sickly blue pallor. The corridors seemed longer, the ceiling vents larger, and it was quiet. Too quiet for a facility that supposedly housed dangerous biological specimens. "Where is everyone?" I asked as we passed empty security stations. "Minimal staffing at night," Larson replied. "Just you, me, Dr. Walsh in medical, and Reynolds patrolling the outer ring. The specimens are less active with fewer people around." I didn't believe him, something about the way he said it. Rehearsed, hollow. The monitoring hub was a circular room with 8 stations positioned around a central pillar. Each station faced a corridor on the security feeds. Larson pointed to Station 3. "You'll monitor sectors C and D, that's corridors 3 and 4. Just watch the feeds, check containment readings every hour and log any anomalies." "What exactly am I watching for?" he hesitated. "Movement, changes in light levels, audio spikes." Another pause. "Shadows that move independently of their sources." I laughed nervously. "You're fucking with me, right?" "I wish I was." He handed me a small UV flashlight. "Keep this on you. Rule 9. And Keller, don't fall asleep, not even for a minute." With that cheerful advice, he took his position at Station 1, leaving me to wonder what the hell I'd done to piss off Director Hayward so badly. The first few hours were uneventful. I checked containment readings, logged atmospheric pressure, monitored radiation levels, all normal. The security feed showed empty corridors, sealed doors, motionless shadows. By 0100, my initial anxiety had given way to boredom. Then I heard it, my name, whispered from somewhere behind me. "Vance." I nearly jumped out of my skin. I whipped around, but there was no one there. Just Larson at his station, typing something into his log. The central pillar, the empty chairs. "Vance. Rule 8. If you hear your name called, do not respond." I turned back to my monitors, heart hammering. The feed still showed empty corridors, but something had changed. In Sector C, Corridor 3, a door was open that had been closed during my last check. I pulled up the access log. No authorized entry since yesterday. "Larson," I called out, keeping my voice steady. "I'm showing an unsecured door in C7. He didn't look up. "Log it as an anomaly. Do not investigate. Shouldn't we alert Reynolds?" "Reynolds doesn't go into the corridors after midnight. Just log it." I did as instructed, but kept watching the feed. That's when I saw it. A darkness moving along the wall of Corridor 3. Not a shadow exactly, more like a void, an absence of light that flowed like liquid across the concrete. It paused at each door, seeming to listen. My fingers hovered over the alert button. But what would I report? A moving shadow. I'd sound insane. The temperature around my station suddenly plummeted. My breath fogged in front of my face. Rule 10, if the temperature drops suddenly, recite your ID number aloud. "ID 47291-Keller-S4, I said, voice shaking. The cold intensified for a moment, then gradually dissipated. On my monitor, the darkness retreated, sliding back toward the open door. I watched, transfixed, as it seemed to pour itself into the room, the door swinging shut behind it. "What the fuck was that?" I whispered. Larson appeared beside me, making me jump. "That," he said quietly, "is why we follow the rules." "What is it? What are we containing here?" He glanced at the central pillar, then leaned closer. "They call them voids. 8 of them, 1 in each sector. They feed on awareness, attention, consciousness. That's why we can't enter during sleep cycles. They're hunting then." "That's insane," I said. "If they're so dangerous, why keep them here? Why not destroy them?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "You think we haven't tried? Nothing works. Not fire, not explosives, not radiation. And each time we've tried, they've multiplied, split like cells. 8 became 16, 16 became 32. So we stopped, contained them, studied them. The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. So we're just babysitting these things, hoping they stay put. For now. Larson returned to his station. Until they figure out how to neutralize them, or until the funding runs out and they seal this whole place shut. Either way, not our problem. Just follow the rules, do your shift, go home. But as I turned back to my monitors, I knew it was already too late. I'd seen one, acknowledged it, and somehow I was certain it had noticed me too. My first night shift ended at 0600. Just as the day crew began filtering in, I didn't wait around to meet them. After 8 hours of jumping at shadows and reciting my ID number every time the air conditioning kicked on, I wanted nothing more than to get home and collapse into dreamless sleep. "Remember Rule 4, Larson called after me as I headed for the exit. "Report all dreams to your supervisor." I waved him off. At that point, I was too exhausted to care about dreams or rules, or anything besides my bed. My apartment was just outside Rachel, Nevada, a tiny desert town 30 minutes from the base. The place wasn't much, but the rent was cheap, and the location let me visit Miles at his group home in Las Vegas on my days off. He needed the stability after everything we'd been through. I stumbled through my front door, kicked off my boots, and fell face first onto my mattress without even shutting the blinds. The desert sun blazed through my window, but I was unconscious within seconds. That's when the dreams started. I was back in the facility, walking down corridor 3. The lights flickered overhead, casting rippling shadows on the concrete walls. I knew I should leave. Rule 7, if lights flicker, exit immediately. But my body wouldn't obey. I kept walking, drawn toward a door at the end of the hallway. Not a containment room, something else. Something important. The door opened as I approached. Beyond it lay darkness. Not the absence of light, but darkness with substance, with weight. It moved like oil, flowing across the threshold toward my feet, and within it, I saw eyes. Hundreds of them, opening and closing in random patterns, watching, evaluating. A voice whispered from the darkness, not my name this time, but numbers, a sequence repeating 47291, my ID number. I woke with a gasp, drenched in cold sweat. My apartment was dark. I'd slept through the entire day. My phone showed 3 missed calls from the facility and a text message from an unlisted number. Report dream immediately. It was just past 2100. I had to be back for my shift in 3 hours. I called the facility, asked for Larson, and described my dream in detail. He listened without interrupting, then said, "Come in early tonight. Dr. Walsh needs to see you." "Is something wrong?" I asked. "Just follow protocol, Keller. And whatever you do, don't fall asleep again before your shift." Dr. Walsh's office was located in the medical wing, separate from the main facility. I'd only been there once for my initial physical when I first joined. Walsh himself was a short, stout man with thick glasses and a perpetually distracted air. He didn't look up when I entered, just motioned for me to sit while he finished reviewing something on his tablet. "Interesting dream, Mr. Keller," he finally said. "Very specific. The sequence of your own ID number is particularly noteworthy. What does it mean?" He removed his glasses, polished them methodically. "It means one of them has noticed you. Formed a connection." A chill ran down my spine. "The voids? They can enter dreams?" "They don't enter anything. The dreams are how they communicate, how they test potential hosts." "Hosts?" No one mentioned anything about "It's need-to-know information," Walsh cut me off. "And now you need to know." He pulled out a syringe filled with clear liquid. "This will suppress REM sleep for about 72 hours. You won't dream. More importantly, they won't be able to find you while you sleep." I eyed the syringe warily. "What happens if I refuse?" "Then you'll be removed from night shift and placed on indefinite administrative leave while we monitor you for infiltration." "Infiltration," I repeated. "You make it sound like these things can possess people." Walsh's expression darkened. "Worse, they can replace them. molecule by molecule, cell by cell. The process takes time, weeks, sometimes months. But it starts with dreams. The victim dreams of darkness, of numbers, of corridors they've never seen. Then comes sleepwalking, lost time, unexplained injuries. He pushed the syringe toward me. So, your choice. I rolled up my sleeve. The injection burned like ice in my veins. By the time I reported for my shift, my head felt clear but strangely hollow, as if part of my consciousness had been scraped away. Larson nodded approvingly when I told him about the suppressant. "Walsh, give you the speech about infiltration?" he asked as we walked to the monitoring hub. "Yeah, is it true? These things can replace people?" Larson's expression was unreadable. "That's the theory. Hard to prove, since we can't detect the changes until it's too late. That's why we have the dream protocol." He paused at the security door. "Listen, there's something you should know about tonight. We're doing a containment check on D4. My stomach dropped. "The specimen in corridor 4? Why?" "Readings have been irregular since your shift yesterday. Could be equipment malfunction, could be..." He didn't finish the sentence. "Anyway, Reynolds will do the physical check. We monitor from the hub. Standard procedure." It didn't feel standard. As we took our positions, I noticed additional security personnel in the outer ring, men in tactical gear I hadn't seen before. Reynolds stood by the entrance to Corridor 4, checking a hazmat suit. "I thought no one enters containment sectors during night shift," I said. "Only during emergencies," Larson replied, not looking up from his console. "Reynolds has clearance. He's done this before." At precisely 0100, Reynolds entered Corridor 4. We tracked his progress through the security feeds. He moved cautiously, methodically checking instrument panels along the walls. Nothing seemed amiss until he reached the containment door for D4. "Getting some unusual readings here," his voice crackled over the comm. "Temperatures fluctuating rapidly." I watched as he placed a handheld device against the door. The numbers on his screen flashed erratically. "Reynolds, report," Larson said. "Something's not right. The door integrity might be compromised. I'm going to..." The lights in Corridor 4 flickered. Rule 7. If lights flicker, exit immediately. "Reynolds, abort check," Larson ordered. "Exit the corridor, now." Reynolds hesitated, still staring at his readings. "Just need to verify..." "That's an order, Reynolds. Exit now." The security tech finally turned away from the door and began heading back toward the entrance. That's when I saw it. The same liquid darkness I'd observed in Corridor 3, now seeping from beneath the containment door of D4. It moved faster than before, flowing across the floor toward Reynolds' retreating figure. "Reynolds, behind you!" I shouted into the comm. He spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. For a split second, the void retreated from the light. Then it surged forward, faster than seemed possible, enveloping Reynolds' legs before he could react. His scream was cut short as the darkness climbed his body. The last thing we saw before the feed went dead was Reynolds' face, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a silent scream as the darkness poured itself inside. Larson slammed his fist on the emergency containment button. Steel shutters dropped over every entrance to Corridor 4, sealing it off from the rest of the facility. Alarms blared throughout the complex. "What happens now?" I asked, voice barely audible over the sirens. Larson's face was ashen. Now we wait, and we update the rules." The facility went into full lockdown after Reynolds disappeared. No one in, no one out. Director Hayward himself arrived within an hour, along with a team of specialists in hazmat suits who disappeared into the sealed Corridor 4. We weren't told what they were doing in there, but the distant sounds of equipment and raised voices continued throughout the night. By morning, the standard day crew had been replaced by an emergency response team. Larson and I were sequestered in a conference room with strict orders not to discuss what we'd witnessed with anyone. Hours passed before Hayward finally entered, looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. "Gentlemen," he said, taking a seat across from us. "What happened last night was a Level 1 containment breach. That makes it only the third in S4's operational history." He spread several photos on the table. They showed Corridor 4, walls, floor, and ceiling coated with a black tar-like substance that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "The entity from D4 has expanded its influence beyond the containment chamber," Hayward continued. "We believe it consumed Reynolds and is using his biomass to extend itself." My stomach churned at the clinical way he described it. "Reynolds is dead?" Hayward's expression hardened. "At this point, yes, we must assume so, though dead may not be precisely the right term. The voids don't kill in the conventional sense. They incorporate." "And what about the rest of us?" Larson asked. "Is the facility secure?" "For the moment. We've reinforced the barriers around Corridor 4 and evacuated all adjacent sections. But this incident has forced us to implement Contingency Protocol 16. He slid a document across the table. The header read, "Revised Containment Procedures, Immediate Implementation." Below it were 13 rules, including the original 10+3 new ones. No personnel to be left alone at any time. All dreams to be recorded in central database within 1 hour of waking. If you experience lost time, report for immediate evaluation. "Lost time?" I asked. "Unexplained gaps in memory," Hayward explained. "Moments where you suddenly find yourself in a different location with no recollection of how you got there. It's one of the first signs of potential infiltration." The word hung in the air between us. Infiltration. Dr. Walsh had used the same term. The idea that these things could somehow replace a person, cell by cell. "What exactly are we dealing with here, sir?" I asked. Larson called them voids, but what are they really? Where did they come from? Hayward studied me for a long moment. "That information is classified above your clearance level, Keller. With all due respect, sir, I just watched one of these things consume a colleague. I think I deserve to know what I'm risking my life to contain." Larson shot me a warning look, but Hayward's expression softened slightly. "You're right," he conceded. "After what you witnessed, you're entitled to some context." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What I'm about to tell you is Level 5 classified. Disclosure to unauthorized personnel is punishable under Section 798 of the US Code." I nodded and he continued. "The entities we contain here weren't discovered in the traditional sense. They were created. In 1978, this facility housed a classified defense project codenamed Blacklight. The goal was to develop weapons capable of targeting consciousness itself, psychic warfare essentially." "You're saying these things are man-made?" Larson asked incredulously. "Not intentionally. The project involved experiments with human perception, manipulating how subjects processed visual and auditory information. One experiment utilized sensory deprivation tanks combined with specific electromagnetic frequencies to induce altered states of consciousness." Hayward paused, as if weighing how much to reveal. "On July 17, 1978, during one such experiment, something responded. 8 test subjects reported identical experiences, the sensation of something looking back from within the darkness they perceived. Within 24 hours, all 8 had begun manifesting identical symptoms, speaking in unknown languages, severe photosensitivity, and the ability to manipulate darkness around them." "Jesus," I whispered. 3 days later, the first researcher was replaced. By the end of the week, we had lost 16 personnel. That's when we implemented the first containment protocols. We managed to isolate each entity in a separate chamber, but not before. He trailed off, then straightened his shoulders. "The official record states that a gas leak killed 23 researchers. Their families were compensated accordingly." I felt sick. "So these things have been here since 1978, just contained?" "Until now, yes. For decades, they remained dormant, seemingly content to exist within their chambers. But in the past 18 months, they've become increasingly active, testing boundaries, initiating contact through dreams. This breach with Reynolds is the most aggressive action we've seen yet. Why now? Larson asked. What changed? Hayward's expression darkened. We don't know, but there are theories. Some of our researchers believe the entities are responding to changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field. Others think they're reacting to some external stimulus we can't detect. Or maybe they're just tired of being imprisoned, I suggested. Hayward's eyes narrowed. These aren't sentient beings deserving of sympathy, Keller. They're parasitic consciousness forms that would consume every mind they encounter if released. Remember that. The director dismissed us shortly after, ordering us to rest but remain on site in the staff dormitories. I was assigned a small room with a narrow bed and a desk, no windows, no personal items allowed, just 4 grey walls and the revised rule sheet posted beside the door. I couldn't sleep despite my exhaustion. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Reynolds being consumed by that liquid darkness. I kept wondering, was he still aware somehow? Trapped inside that thing? And what would happen to the rest of us if more containment chambers failed? Around 1800, a knock at my door broke my morbid reverie. It was Larson, looking haggard but determined. Get dressed, he said. We need to talk, but not here. He led me to the facility cafeteria, which was mostly empty during shift change. We took a table in the corner, far from the few personnel grabbing coffee. I don't trust Hayward's story, Larson said without preamble. Something's not adding up. What do you mean? I've been working nights for 6 years. In all that time, the voids have never broken containment until yesterday. And suddenly, one consumes Reynolds. Right after you start asking questions about what we're really doing here. I frowned. You think there's a connection? I think there's more going on than Hayward is telling us. Larson pulled out a small notebook and slid it across the table. I've been keeping track of anomalies during my shifts, patterns in void activity, environmental fluctuations, personnel changes. Look at the dates. I flipped through the notebook. Larson had meticulously recorded incidents spanning years, temperature drops, dream reports, light fluctuations. But what caught my eye were the personnel notes. Over the past 6 months, 11 night shift workers had been transferred or had resigned suddenly. Each transfer corresponded with increased void activity in one particular sector. You see it? Larson asked. Sector C, your sector. The activity there has been spiking for months, and everyone who monitored it has been removed, one way or another. What about you? You've been here 6 years. I monitor sectors A and B, different entities, different patterns. But I've seen enough to know something changed about 6 months ago. The voids are more active, more coordinated, almost like they're working together. A chill ran down my spine. Hayward said they came from the same experiment. Maybe they are connected somehow. Larson nodded grimly. Connected and getting stronger. Reynolds won't be the last casualty, mark my words. So, what do we do? He leaned closer. We need to access the original blacklight files, the full research records, not the sanitized version Hayward gave us. I've been trying for years, but my clearance isn't high enough. And mine is? Number. But with the facility in crisis mode, security protocols have been temporarily realigned. I've noticed certain systems are accessible that weren't before. He tapped the table nervously. There's a terminal in Dr. Walsh's office. If we could get in there, access his credentials. That's insane, I hissed. We'd be violating about a dozen regulations. They'd throw us in a hole so deep we'd never see daylight again. Maybe. Or maybe we'd finally learn what we're really dealing with. Larson stood. Think about it. But don't take too long. If I'm right about these patterns, something bigger is coming. Soon. As he walked away, I stared down at his notebook, at the meticulous record of a man trying to make sense of the incomprehensible. I thought about Reynolds, about the dreams, about the new rules designed to detect infiltration. Something wasn't right at S4, and despite every instinct telling me to keep my head down and follow the rules, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives depended on discovering the truth. I spent the next 12 hours weighing my options. Follow the rules, keep my head down, hope the containment holds, or help Larson break into restricted systems and risk everything to uncover the truth. Neither choice seemed particularly appealing. What tipped the scales was the dream. Despite Walsh's suppressant, I dreamed again that night. This time, I saw Reynolds, or what used to be Reynolds, moving through darkness like it was water, his eyes replaced by empty voids. He spoke, but the words weren't in any language I recognized. Just sounds that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Then he reached toward me, fingers elongating into writhing tendrils of shadow. I woke up gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs. According to Rule 12, I should have reported the dream immediately. I didn't. Something told me that would be a one-way ticket to whatever had happened to the other night shift workers who'd been transferred. Instead, I sought out Larson. He was in the facility gym, the only place besides the cafeteria where we could talk without obvious surveillance. "I'm in," I told him as we pretended to spot each other on the bench press. "What's the plan?" Relief flickered across his face. "We need to move fast. Walsh makes his rounds at 2200, then spends an hour in the containment wing. His office will be empty. What about security cameras?" "I've been studying the patterns. There's a 3-second delay when the system switches between feeds. If we time it right, we can get in undetected." "And if we're caught?" Larson grunted as he pushed the barbell up. "Then we're fucked. But we're probably fucked anyway if these things break out. Lesser of two evils." Hard to argue with that logic. We moved at precisely 22:03. Walsh had left for his rounds. The corridor was momentarily clear, and we had approximately 57 minutes before he returned. Larson had somehow acquired a key card that shouldn't have worked for Walsh's office, but did, a fact that he refused to explain. The office was meticulously organized, every surface clear except for a computer terminal and a framed photo of Walsh with what looked like his son. Larson went straight for the computer while I kept watch at the door. "Damn it," he muttered after a minute. "It needs biometric authentication." "So we're screwed?" "Not necessarily." He pulled a small device from his pocket and connected it to the computer. "This will cycle through override protocols, military grade. It might work, might not." "Where the hell did you get that?" "Ask me again when we're not committing multiple felonies." He focused on the device, fingers flying over its surface. Come on. The screen suddenly flashed green and a command prompt appeared. Larson smiled grimly. "We're in. Now to find those blacklight files." As he searched, I kept glancing at my watch. 30 minutes left. 25. 20. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the office's cool air. "Found something," Larson finally said. "Project files, security clearance logs, subject records. Downloading everything now." "Hurry up," I urged, checking the corridor again. Still clear, but my nerves were stretched to breaking point. "Almost got it." He disconnected his device and shut down the computer. "Let's go." We made it back to the staff dormitories without incident, though I swear my heart didn't stop racing until we were safely behind closed doors. Larson's room was identical to mine, just as sparse and institutional. He pulled out a tablet, another item that technically wasn't allowed in the facility, and connected his device. "This will take a while to decrypt," he said. "But I grabbed something else that we can look at now." He pulled up a video file. Security footage from 1978, the original incident. The footage was grainy, black and white, typical of the era. It showed 8 subjects lying on gurneys in a circular room, electrodes attached to their heads. Researchers in lab coats moved between them, adjusting equipment. At the video's timestamp, 3:17:44, all 8 subjects suddenly arched their backs, as if in seizure. Their mouths opened in what must have been screams, though the footage had no audio. Then came the darkness. It didn't appear from anywhere. It simply manifested, like ink bleeding through paper from the other side. It gathered around each subject, coalescing into roughly humanoid shapes that hovered over the gurneys. The researchers began backing away, some running for the doors. The timestamp read 3:18:12 when the feed abruptly cut out. "Jesus," I whispered. "What was that?" Larson played the clip again, freezing it at 3:18:9. "Look at the shadows," he said, pointing to the dark figures. "They're not just random shapes. They have structure, patterns." He was right. Each shadow displayed a distinct configuration of lines and curves, like some kind of writing or symbols. "I've seen this before," I said slowly. "In my dreams. Those patterns." Larson's face paled. "You're dreaming about the symbols? Even with the suppressant?" "Last night. I saw Reynolds, but he was changed, and there were symbols like these all around him. This is bad, really bad." He pulled up another file. "Look at this. Subject evaluation reports from after the incident. Every researcher who reported dreams containing symbols was quarantined within 48 hours. Quarantined or eliminated, I asked, remembering Hayward's clinical description of the gas leak that had killed 23 researchers. The records don't say, but given what we know about this place... He didn't need to finish the thought. My watch beeped softly. "Shift starts in 20 minutes, I said. "We should go before someone comes looking for us." Larson nodded. "I'll keep working on the encrypted files. Meet me tomorrow, same time. And Keller, be careful. Don't let anyone know you're still dreaming, especially not Walsh." I headed for the monitoring hub with a gnawing sense of dread. The facility felt different now that I knew its history, less like a secret government installation and more like a prison built to contain something mankind never should have contacted. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every empty corridor a potential threat. Larson was already at his station when I arrived, his face a mask of professional indifference. No one would have guessed we'd just committed high-level security violations together. I tried to match his calm demeanor as I logged into my terminal. "Any update on Corridor 4? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Still sealed," he replied. "Director's orders." I nodded, turning my attention to the feeds for sectors C and D. Everything looked normal. Empty corridors, sealed doors, stable readings. But after everything I'd seen, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me through the cameras, using them like eyes. The night dragged on. Every hour I checked the containment readings as required. Every sudden noise made me jump. Every flicker of the lights sent my hand to the emergency button. By 3 a.m., I was so tense, my shoulders ached. "Taking a bathroom break," I announced, needing to move, to escape the claustrophobic hub for just a few minutes. Larson nodded without looking up. "Stay on the main level. Don't go near the corridors." I mumbled agreement and headed out. The facility's nighttime lighting cast everything in shadowy blue, making even familiar sections seem alien and threatening. I kept my UV flashlight in hand, thumb on the switch, ready to activate it at the first sign of trouble. The bathroom was empty, thank God. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to clear my head. When I looked up at the mirror, for a split second, I thought I saw something behind me. A darkness deeper than shadow, moving independently. I whirled around, heart in my throat, but there was nothing there. Just nerves, I told myself. Just paranoia after everything that's happened. But as I left the bathroom, a chill passed through me that had nothing to do with the facility's air conditioning. The feeling of being watched, of being followed, persisted all the way back to the monitoring hub. And when I glanced at my sector feeds again, I could have sworn that something in Corridor 3 moved just out of frame, something that cast no reflection on the polished floor. Something was definitely happening in corridor 3. I kept my eyes glued to the feed, searching for any movement, any anomaly. Nothing visible, yet the containment readings were fluctuating subtly, atmospheric pressure rising and falling in patterns that didn't match the facility's environmental systems. "Larson," I called, keeping my voice low. "I'm getting weird readings from C3. He was at my station in seconds, studying the numbers with narrowed eyes. Temperatures cycling. 5-degree variations every 47 seconds. Is that normal? Number and the pattern? He pulled out a small notepad, jotting down the sequence. It's repeating, like a code or signal. A chill ran through me. Like it's trying to communicate? Maybe. Question is, communicate with what? His eyes flicked to the cameras showing corridor 4, still sealed after Reynolds' disappearance. Or with who? The rest of our shift passed in tense silence. Every hour, the readings in corridor 3 would fluctuate for exactly 12 minutes, then stabilize. We documented everything, but didn't report it. Something told me that would be a mistake. By the time our relief arrived at 0600, I was wound so tight I could barely speak. We handed over our stations with minimal conversation and headed for the dormitories. As we reached the junction that would separate us to our respective rooms, Larson gripped my arm. "Meet me in storage room B7 in 3 hours, he whispered. "I've got something." I nodded, too exhausted for questions. Back in my room, I collapsed onto the narrow bed, my mind racing despite my body's fatigue. I didn't want to sleep, didn't want to dream. But exhaustion won out, and I slipped into darkness. This time, I didn't dream of Reynolds, or corridors, or shadows. I dreamed of symbols, the same ones from the 1978 footage. But now they moved, rearranging themselves into new configurations that somehow seemed to carry meaning. I couldn't understand them, but I felt their significance pressing against my consciousness like a physical weight. I woke abruptly to pounding on my door. My watch showed I'd been asleep for just over 2 hours. "Keller, open up." Larson's voice, urgent. I stumbled to the door, still groggy. Larson pushed past me the moment I opened it, closing the door behind him. "Plans have changed," he said, his voice tight with tension. "We need to move now." "What happened?" "Walsh is running tests on the night shift personnel. Blood work, cognitive assessments, the works. Looking for signs of infiltration." My stomach dropped. "Because of the readings we saw?" "I don't know, but we can't risk waiting." He pulled out his tablet. "I've decrypted some of the blacklight files. It's worse than we thought, Keller. So much worse." He handed me the tablet. The first document was a research summary dated August 1978, 1 month after the initial incident. It described in clinical detail how the 8 original test subjects had been fully subsumed within 72 hours of contact with what the document called extra-dimensional consciousness constructs. The entities did not merely kill the subjects, the report stated. They rewrote them at the cellular level, preserving higher brain functions while replacing all organic material with a substance that defies conventional analysis. These hybrid organisms retain memories and behavioral patterns of the original hosts, but serve as conduits for the entity's consciousness. "They're using people as vessels," I said, horror dawning. "Not just consuming them." Larson nodded grimly. "Keep reading." The next document was a theoretical analysis by the project's lead scientist, Dr. Anton Weiss. It proposed that the entities existed primarily in a dimension adjacent to our own, able to interact with our reality only through specific electromagnetic frequencies, the same frequencies the experiment had been designed to generate. "We did not discover these entities," Weiss wrote. "We created a door, and they walked through it. Evidence suggests they have been attempting to access our dimension for centuries, manifesting as shadow phenomena in various cultures' mythologies. What we perceived as 8 separate entities may in fact be projections of a single consciousness, fragmented across our dimensional boundary." My hands were shaking by the time I finished reading. If they're fragments of the same consciousness, then they've been working together all along, Larson finished. The containment protocols, the separation into different sectors, it's all been pointless. They're a single entity, split across 8 vessels. But if that's true, then why haven't they broken out before? Why wait decades? Larson pulled up another document, this one labelled Weiss Suppression Protocol. Because of this, he said, after the initial incident, Weiss designed a system to prevent the fragments from reunifying, some kind of electromagnetic barrier tuned to their specific frequency. He scrolled through technical specifications I couldn't begin to understand. It's built into the facility's architecture, the 8 corridors, the central hub. The whole place is a giant suppression device. So what changed? I asked. Why are they active now? That's the billion-dollar question. But look at this. He showed me a maintenance log from 6 months ago, the exact time frame when Larson had noted increased activity. Major power fluctuation during system upgrade. The suppression field went down for 3.7 seconds. Long enough for the fragments to, what? Synchronize, share information. Or long enough for something else to get through, Larson said softly. A knock at the door made us both jump. Larson quickly tucked the tablet away as I moved to answer. Dr. Walsh stood in the hallway, flanked by 2 security officers I didn't recognize. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Keller, he said pleasantly. Sorry to disturb you, but we need to run some routine tests in light of recent events. Won't take more than an hour. Every instinct screamed danger, but I forced a neutral expression. Of course. Just let me get my shoes. And Mr. Larson, Walsh continued, nodding to my unexpected visitor. Convenient to find you here as well. You can join us. Larson's face betrayed nothing, but I could sense his tension. Happy to help, Doctor. Lead the way. We followed Walsh through the facility to the medical wing, the security officers trailing behind us like silent shadows. The corridors seemed unnaturally empty, our footsteps echoing off sterile walls. You two have become quite close, Walsh observed as we walked. Unusual given your short time working together. Shared trauma, Larson replied easily. Watching a colleague get consumed by an interdimensional shadow monster tends to accelerate the bonding process. Walsh's smile tightened. Yes, quite understandable. Though I must say, Mr. Keller's rapid integration into night shift protocols has been remarkable. Most new personnel struggle with the adjustment. We reached the medical lab, a large room filled with equipment I didn't recognize. No other staff were present. Please, have a seat, Walsh gestured to 2 examination chairs. This won't take long. As we sat, the security officers positioned themselves by the door. Walsh busied himself preparing syringes, his back to us. Just a standard blood panel, he explained. We're monitoring cortisol levels, neurotransmitter activity, and a few other markers that might indicate stress or external influence. Like dream activity, I asked, watching his reaction carefully. His hands paused for just a fraction of a second. Among other things, yes. He turned, holding 2 syringes. The suppressant I gave you should have prevented any dreams. Have you experienced any since the injection? Rule 12. All dreams to be recorded in central database within 1 hour of waking. I thought about the symbols, about the patterns that seemed to carry meaning I couldn't quite grasp, about how every person who reported similar dreams in 1978 had been quarantined within 48 hours. No, I lied. Nothing at all. Walsh studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Good. That's very good. He approached Larson first, swabbing his arm with alcohol. Your arm, please. As Walsh inserted the needle into Larson's vein, I noticed something odd. A slight shadow beneath the doctor's collar, visible only when he leaned forward. Not a bruise or discoloration of the skin, but something deeper, as if the darkness existed beneath his epidermis. My blood ran cold as realization hit me. The patterns in Corridor 3, the fluctuating readings, the sudden tests for infiltration. It wasn't about finding out if we were compromised. It was about finding out if we knew. Walsh finished with Larson and turned to me, fresh syringe in hand. As he leaned in, I could see it more clearly, darkness moving beneath his skin like oil under water. "Your arm, Mr. Keller," he said, voice pleasant, but eyes empty. I extended my arm, mind racing. If Walsh was compromised, if the void had somehow gotten to him, then whatever was in that syringe probably wasn't a standard blood test. As the needle approached my skin, the lights flickered. Rule 7. If lights flicker, exit immediately. "Power fluctuation," Walsh said calmly, "nothing to worry about." But I had seen how the voids reacted to light, how the one pursuing Reynolds had momentarily retreated from his flashlight beam. I remembered Rule 9. Keep one light source on your person at all times. The UV flashlight was still in my pocket. In one fluid motion, I pulled it out and clicked it on, aiming the beam directly at Walsh's face. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Where the ultraviolet light touched his skin, it seemed to ripple and distort, the darkness beneath rising to the surface, like a stain spreading through fabric. Walsh's mouth opened in what should have been a scream, but the sound that emerged was more like static, a harsh, grating noise that made my ears ring. The syringe dropped from his hand as he stumbled backward, hands flying to his face. "Run!" I shouted to Larson, keeping the light trained on Walsh. The security officers moved to block the door, but Larson was faster. He grabbed a metal tray of instruments and hurled it at them, creating just enough chaos for us to bolt past. We ran blindly through the facility, alarms blaring behind us. The main exits would be locked down immediately. Our only hope was to reach one of the maintenance tunnels Larson had discovered in the facility schematics. "This way," he gasped, pulling me down a narrow service corridor. Behind us, Walsh's distorted voice echoed over the facility's PA system. "Security alert. Detain Keller and Larson. Do not approach directly. They are to be considered compromised and extremely dangerous." The irony might have been funny if we weren't running for our lives. We reached a maintenance hatch that Larson quickly unlocked with his stolen keycard. As we slipped inside and pulled the hatch closed behind us, I couldn't help but wonder, how many others in the facility were like Walsh? How far had the infiltration already spread? And more importantly, where could we possibly go that they wouldn't find us? The maintenance tunnel was a cramped concrete shaft, barely wide enough for one person, let alone two grown men shoulder to shoulder. Dim emergency lights cast everything in sickly red, making the condensation on the walls look like blood. We moved as quickly as we could, the sounds of the facility alarm growing fainter as we descended deeper into the infrastructure of S4. "Where does this lead?" I gasped, trying to keep up with Larson. "Sub-level 3, he replied without slowing. "It's not on the official facility maps, maintenance access only." "And you know this how?" "Been here 6 years, remember? I make it my business to know escape routes." The tunnel eventually opened into a larger utility corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The air was stale, tinged with the metallic scent of recirculated oxygen and machinery oil. Larson paused at a junction, consulting a mental map I could only guess at. "This way," he decided, heading left. "There's an emergency exit that leads to the old vehicle bay. If we can get there, we might be able to find transport." I followed, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. What if the exit is locked down? What if they're waiting for us? "One problem at a time, Keller." He glanced back, his face grim in the red light. "Right now, we're better off down here than up there with whatever Walsh has become." The image of darkness moving beneath Walsh's skin flashed in my mind. How many do you think are compromised? Hard to say. Could be isolated incidents, could be widespread. The fact that Hayward brought in new security teams after Reynolds disappeared suggests he's either trying to contain the situation or replace potentially compromised personnel. Or both. Larson nodded. Either way, we can't trust anyone in the facility now. We continued in silence for another 10 minutes before reaching a heavy metal door marked SL3-VB. Larson pulled out his keycard, hesitating. Once we go through, we're committed, he warned. No turning back. We were committed the moment we stole those files, I reminded him. Besides, what's our alternative? Wait to be found by whatever's hunting us. He swiped the card. The door unlocked with a metallic clunk, and we pushed through into what had once been a large underground vehicle bay. Now it stood abandoned, filled with obsolete military vehicles and equipment covered in dust cloths. The vast space was lit only by emergency lighting, creating islands of visibility in an ocean of shadows. Jesus, I whispered, taking in the scale of the place. This looks like it could house a small army. That was probably the idea, Larson replied, moving cautiously between covered vehicles. This facility dates back to the Cold War, likely designed as a fallback position or command center in case of nuclear attack. We made our way toward what appeared to be an exit ramp at the far end of the bay. Movement caught my eye, a shadow shifting between vehicles to our right. I froze, gripping Larson's arm. "We're not alone," I hissed. He nodded, reaching slowly for the UV flashlight in his pocket. "Stay close. Move toward the ramp." We quickened our pace, weaving through the abandoned vehicles. The feeling of being watched intensified with every step. Shadows seemed to flow around us, always just at the edge of vision. "Almost there," Larson muttered as we approached the ramp. "Just need to..." A figure stepped out from behind a covered truck, blocking our path. In the dim light, I could make out a familiar face. Reynolds. But not Reynolds as I'd known him. His skin had a waxy, almost translucent quality, and his eyes were pools of perfect darkness without whites or pupils or irises. "Hello, boys," he said, his voice somehow overlapping with itself, as if multiple people were speaking in near unison. "Going somewhere?" Larson immediately pointed the UV flashlight at him, but Reynolds, or whatever was wearing Reynolds' form, merely smiled. Unlike Walsh, the light seemed to have no effect. "That only works on fresh hosts," he explained, as if reading our thoughts. "The integration process is complete now." More figures emerged from the shadows around us. Security personnel, researchers, maintenance workers, all with the same dark eyes, the same unnatural stillness to their movements. "Shit," Larson breathed. "We're surrounded." The Reynolds thing took a step forward. "Director Hayward would like to speak with you. He's quite concerned about your unauthorized access to classified materials." "Hayward?" I asked, mind racing for a way out. "Is he like you now?" A smile spread across Reynolds' face that looked all wrong, too wide, too many teeth. "The director has been enlightened, as we all have been, as you will be." "Hard pass," Larson said, backing up. We were running out of options, the circle of infiltrated personnel closing around us. That's when I noticed it, a fuel truck positioned near a stack of supply crates. If we could create a distraction... I nudged Larson, directing his attention to the truck with a slight nod. He understood immediately. "You know," he called out to Reynolds, "we've learned quite a bit about you from those files, about what you really are." Reynolds cocked his head at an unnatural angle. "And what might that be?" "Fragments," I said, taking a step to the side as Larson moved in the opposite direction, splitting the attention of our captors. Fragments of something trapped between dimensions. Not even complete entities, just echoes. A ripple of anger passed through the circle of dark-eyed personnel. Reynolds' smile vanished. "We are far more than you can comprehend," he hissed, voice dropping to a subsonic rumble that made my teeth ache. "We have existed in the spaces between realities for eons. Your kind merely opened the door. And now you're stuck here," Larson said, edging closer to the fuel truck. Trapped in human bodies because you can't fully manifest in our dimension. Reynolds took another step forward, darkness seeming to pool around his feet. Not for much longer, the alignment approaches. When all fragments reunite, the barrier between dimensions will weaken enough for our complete emergence. A chill ran down my spine. Alignment? What alignment? The cycle completes every 47 years, Reynolds said, eyes gleaming with alien malice. July 17th, 2025. The door opens both ways. Larson caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. He was in position. I lunged for a metal pipe, leaning against a nearby crate, swinging it at the nearest dark-eyed security officer. As the others converged on me, Larson sprinted to the fuel truck, wrenching open the cab door and diving inside. The engine roared to life as I fought off two more infiltrated personnel. Their strength was inhuman, hands gripping like steel vices. One caught my arm, twisting until something popped in my shoulder. Pain lanced through me, but adrenaline kept me moving. The fuel truck lurched forward, Larson at the wheel, ploughing into a stack of supply crates and sending them crashing down on several of our pursuers. I broke free in the confusion, sprinting toward the passenger side. Larson threw the door open and I hauled myself in with my good arm. "Hold on," he shouted, gunning the engine. The truck accelerated toward the exit ramp, infiltrated personnel diving out of the way. Reynolds stood his ground, darkness swirling around him like a cloak. As we barreled toward him, he simply dissolved, his form collapsing into a pool of living shadow that flowed away between cracks in the concrete floor. We hit the ramp at full speed, crashing through a security gate that had begun to descend. Metal scraped against metal as we squeezed through the narrowing gap, emerging into a tunnel that sloped upward toward daylight. "That was too easy," I gasped, clutching my injured shoulder. "Don't jinx it," Larson growled, focused on negotiating the tunnel's tight confines. We emerged into harsh desert sunlight, the truck bursting from a camouflaged entrance set into the side of a barren hill. The main facility was nowhere in sight. We'd come out some distance from it, in an area of desert scrubland bordered by distant mountains. Larson didn't slow down, pushing the aging truck to its limits as we bounced over rough terrain. In the side mirror, I could see vehicles emerging from the tunnel behind us, military Humvees moving at high speed. "Company," I warned. "I see them." He swerved sharply, heading for a ravine that might provide cover. The truck's radio suddenly crackled to life, though neither of us had touched it. Static hissed, then resolved into a voice I recognized as Director Hayward's. "Mr. Keller, Mr. Larson," he said, his tone oddly formal. "I strongly advise you to return to the facility immediately. What you've learned is only partial information, and the conclusions you've drawn are premature." "Premature?" Larson barked a laugh. "Your staff has been infiltrated by interdimensional shadow monsters. I'd say our conclusions are pretty fucking spot on." "The situation is more complex than you realize," Hayward insisted. "The entities are not simply hostile invaders. They are offering humanity an opportunity, an evolutionary leap forward." I felt sick. "You're one of them, aren't you?" A pause. "I have been enlightened, yes. I've seen what they offer. Unity, purpose, power beyond imagining." "Thanks, but we're good," Larson replied, pushing the truck faster as the pursuing vehicles gained on us. "You cannot escape," Hayward said, voice hardening. "Even if you evade immediate capture, what then? Where will you go? Who will believe your story?" He had a point. Two government employees claiming shadow monsters had infiltrated a top-secret facility. We'd be dismissed as delusional, if not immediately detained as security risks. "The alignment is coming, regardless of your actions," Hayward continued. "July 17th, 2025. The door will open fully. The merging will be complete. You can be part of it willingly, or you can be subsumed. The choice is yours, but the outcome is inevitable." The radio went dead as we plunged into the ravine, momentarily losing sight of our pursuers. Larson's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "What the hell are we going to do?" I asked, the reality of our situation sinking in. He's right. No one will believe us. Not without evidence, Larson agreed grimly. Good thing we have plenty. He patted his pocket where the tablet containing the stolen files rested. First, we need to get clear of the immediate search area. Then find somewhere to regroup, figure out our next move. And then what? Go public? Contact the media? And start a panic? No. He navigated a sharp turn in the ravine. We need someone with the authority and resources to actually do something about this. Someone who'll listen. Who? The military. They're probably compromised too. Larson was silent for a moment. Then, I have a contact. Someone outside the official chain of command. He works for a private research foundation that monitors unusual phenomena. If anyone will believe us, it's him. The ravine widened, opening onto a flat expanse of desert. In the distance, I could see a small town, perhaps Rachel or Crystal Springs. Civilization such as it was in this remote corner of Nevada. First things first, Larson said, pointing to the town. We ditch this truck, find alternative transport, and get as far from S4 as possible. Then we contact my guy. I nodded, trying to ignore the throbbing pain in my shoulder and the persistent feeling that we were being watched, even out here in the open desert. Hayward's words echoed in my mind. July 17th, 2025. Less than 3 months away. Whatever this alignment was, whatever door was going to open, we didn't have much time to stop it. And somewhere behind us, shadows were gathering, preparing to follow. We abandoned the fuel truck on the outskirts of Crystal Springs, a tiny desert community that seemed to consist of little more than a gas station, a diner, and a handful of weathered houses. The town was quiet, just a few locals going about their business, completely unaware of the existential horror unfolding 30 miles away. We need to keep moving, Larson said, scanning the surroundings with nervous energy. They'll have the truck's description by now. My shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. I need medical attention first, I grimaced. Can't run if I can't move my arm. Larson assessed me with a critical eye. Dislocated, probably. I can fix that, but it's going to hurt like hell. Just do it, I said, bracing myself. We ducked behind an abandoned storage shed. Larson positioned himself behind me, grasping my arm firmly. On 3. 1. He wrenched my arm sharply, a white-hot explosion of pain followed by a sickening pop as the joint slid back into place. Jesus fuck, I gasped, nearly blacking out. What happened to 2 and 3? Anticipation makes it worse, he said without apology. Can you move it? I rotated my shoulder cautiously. The pain was still intense, but the joint functioned. It'll do. Good. Now we need transportation and supplies. He peered around the shed at the gas station. Wait here. 15 minutes later, he returned with a plastic bag containing water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit, and 2 prepaid phones. Got us a ride too, he added, nodding toward an ancient pickup truck parked by the side of the building. Owners having lunch at the diner. Keys were in the visor. We're stealing a truck. Borrowing, he corrected. We'll leave it somewhere it can be found, unless you'd prefer to walk through 100 miles of desert. He had a point. We moved quickly to the truck, Larson taking the wheel. The engine protested but eventually grumbled to life, and we pulled onto the highway heading east. Where are we going? I asked, as Crystal Springs disappeared in the rearview mirror. St. George, Utah. About a 3-hour drive, if we're lucky. My contact has a safe house there. He handed me one of the prepaid phones. I need to make a call, but not from here. We'll stop farther out, away from any cell towers that might be monitored. We drove in tense silence for an hour, constantly checking the mirrors for pursuit. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me exhausted and nauseous. My mind kept returning to what we'd learned. The fragments, the alignment. July 17th. The world had exactly 82 days before something apocalyptic emerged from S4. "The guy we're meeting," I finally said. "Who is he?" Larson kept his eyes on the road. Dr. Benjamin Maddox. Used to work for DARPA on consciousness transfer technology. Got pushed out when his research veered into what they considered fringe territory. And he knows about the voids. Not specifically, but he knows about Project Blacklight. He was Weiss's student back in the day before the 1978 incident. Been investigating similar phenomena ever since. Can we trust him? Larson's grip tightened on the steering wheel. We don't have a choice. We stopped at a remote overlook to make the call. Larson stepped away from the truck, speaking in low tones I couldn't hear. When he returned, his expression was grim. "He'll meet us," gave me coordinates for the safe house. He started the engine. Also said to lose these phones. They can be tracked, even burners. We tossed the phones into a ravine and continued east, pushing the old truck as fast as it would go. As the landscape changed from Nevada desert to Utah's red rocks, I tried to process everything that had happened. Had it really been only 3 days since I'd started on night shift? "What's the plan when we meet Maddox?" I asked as we crossed the state line. "Share the files, explain what we've seen, hope he has some idea how to stop whatever's coming." Larson glanced at me. "You should try to rest. You look like hell." I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, Larson was shaking me awake. We'd stopped in a wooded area outside St. George, next to a small cabin set back from a dirt road. "We're here," he said. "Maddox is waiting inside." The cabin was sparse but clean, a main room with a kitchenette, a bedroom visible through an open door and a bathroom. Dr. Benjamin Maddox was not what I expected. Instead of the wild-eyed conspiracy theorist I'd imagined, he was a composed, silver-haired man in his 70s dressed in a tweed jacket despite the desert heat. "Mr. Larson," he greeted with a firm handshake. "And Mr. Keller, I presume. You've both come a long way. Please sit." We collapsed onto a worn sofa while Maddox took an armchair opposite us. Larson immediately pulled out the tablet. "We have the files," he said. "Everything on Project Blacklight. The containment protocols, the entities, it's all here." Maddox accepted the tablet with steady hands. "I've waited decades for this," he murmured, eyes scanning the screen. Anton was trying to warn me before they silenced him. "Weiss?" I asked. "He wasn't killed in the original incident?" Maddox looked up sharply. "Is that what they told you?" "No. Anton survived the initial event. He was the one who designed the suppression field that contained the fragments, but he knew it was only a temporary solution." His eyes returned to the tablet. "The government wanted to study the entities, harness them as weapons. Anton wanted to send them back where they came from and seal the door permanently." "And they killed him for it?" Larson asked. "Accidental lab explosion 3 months after the incident, but he managed to get a message to me before it happened." Maddox set the tablet down. "He said they were planning for something called the alignment. That's why I've been watching S4 all these years." "July 17th, 2025, I said. "That's the date. Something about a 47-year cycle." Maddox nodded gravely. 47 years from the original incident, when the dimensional boundaries that separate us from them are at their weakest. "Hayward said it's a door that opens both ways," Larson added. "What does that mean?" "It means that just as they've been trying to enter our reality, they've also been pulling parts of our reality into theirs." Maddox's expression darkened. "The missing personnel, the accidents, those people didn't die. They were drawn across the boundary, converted into something that could exist in the space between dimensions." "Reynolds," I whispered, remembering the security tech's fate. "And now Walsh, Hayward, they're preparing for this alignment, using human bodies as vessels." "Precisely. And once the alignment occurs, the boundary dissolves completely. Their reality merges with ours." Maddox stood, moving to a bookshelf where he pulled down an old journal. Anton predicted this. He called it dimensional collapse. our laws of physics, our very concept of existence, all rewritten according to their nature. How do we stop it? Larson asked. Maddox opened the journal, revealing pages of complex equations and diagrams. Anton was working on a solution, a way to reverse the process that opened the door in the first place. A counter-resonance field that would force the fragmented entity back into its own dimension and seal the boundary. "And do you know how to create this field?" I asked, hope stirring for the first time since our escape. "Theoretically, yes. The mathematics are sound. But the practical application..." He hesitated. "It would require generating an enormous electromagnetic pulse at the precise frequency of the entity's consciousness. And it would have to be generated from within S4 itself, at the original point of contact." My hope deflated. So we'd have to go back, into a facility now controlled by these things. "Not necessarily controlled," Maddox corrected. "Infiltrated, yes, but I doubt they've taken over completely. The military wouldn't cede control of such a strategic asset, even if some high-ranking personnel have been compromised." "That doesn't make our chances any better," Larson pointed out. "How would we even get back in?" "They'll be watching for us," Maddox smiled thinly. "I may have spent the last 40 years as a pariah in the scientific community, but I've made other connections. People who understand the stakes, who've been preparing for this possibility." He went to a secure cabinet and unlocked it, revealing communications equipment, weapons, and what looked like military-grade credentials. "I have contacts in various agencies who share my concerns about S4, he explained. "People who've noticed patterns of unusual behavior among personnel associated with the facility. They've been building a response team, gathering resources, waiting for proof." "The files," I realized. "That's why you needed them so badly. They're the smoking gun, evidence that can't be dismissed or explained away." He held up a satellite phone. "With this, I can mobilize resources that have been standing by for years. Special operators who haven't been anywhere near S4 or its personnel. Clean, trustworthy." "How long would it take?" Larson asked, "to assemble the team?" 24 hours. To create the counter-resonance device based on Anton's specifications. Perhaps another 48. Maddox's expression was grim. "But make no mistake, even with everything perfectly aligned, this will be extremely dangerous. The entities will sense what we're trying to do. They'll resist. And if we fail," I had to ask, "then on July 17th, reality as we know it ends." He looked between us. "I won't lie to you, the odds are poor. And even if we succeed in repelling them and sealing the boundary, many will die in the attempt. Possibly everyone who enters that facility." The weight of his words settled over us. I thought of Miles, my brother, in his group home in Las Vegas. Of the world continuing in blissful ignorance, completely unaware of what lurked beneath the Nevada desert. "I'm in," I said. "Whatever it takes." Larson nodded his agreement. "No one else knows what we know. No one else can do this." Maddox regarded us with something like pride. "Then we'd better get started. We have less than 3 days to prepare, and after that..." He gestured to a map of S4 that he'd unfolded on the table. "After that, we're going back to where it all began." As we gathered around the map, planning our return to the facility that had nearly killed us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were already too late. That the liquid darkness was spreading, flowing through the veins of people in positions of power, preparing the world for a transformation beyond human comprehension. And somewhere in S4, in the depths of Corridor 3, my designated sector, something was waiting for me. Something that had called my name, entered my dreams, known my ID number. Something that had noticed me and wouldn't let go. We had a plan, we had allies, we had purpose. But as night fell over the Utah desert, I wondered if any of it would be enough to stop what was coming. I'm writing this from a motel outside Albuquerque. My hands won't stop shaking. It's been 3 weeks since we returned to S4, and I still can't close my eyes without seeing what happened there. The bodies, the darkness, The way reality itself seemed to bend and distort as the counter-resonance device activated. Maddox's team was good, ex-military specialists with the best equipment money could buy. 12 of us entered the facility through an abandoned maintenance shaft on July 15th. We had 72 hours before the alignment. It should have been enough time. It wasn't. They were waiting for us. Not just the infiltrated personnel, but the voids themselves, no longer confined to their chambers, no longer bothering with human disguises. They moved through the corridors like living oil, absorbing light, absorbing sound, absorbing life. We lost 3 operators in the first 10 minutes. Jackson was simply gone. There 1 second, nothing but his boots the next. Reese and Alvarez we actually saw die. The darkness flowing into them through their eyes, their screams cut short as their bodies contorted into impossible shapes. Somehow we fought our way to the central hub. Maddox and his engineers worked feverishly to set up the device while the rest of us held the perimeter. Larson was incredible, fearless, decisive, keeping us focused when panic threatened to overwhelm us. The counter-resonance device resembled a massive Tesla coil surrounded by 8 satellite emitters. As it powered up, the very air seemed to vibrate, reality flickering like a faulty light bulb. The voids reacted instantly, converging on our position from all 8 corridors. What happened next still doesn't make sense to me. Maddox activated the device, and for a moment, everything stopped. Sound, movement, even time itself. Then a wave of energy pulsed outward from the central hub, and the voids screamed. Not with voices, but with a psychic pressure that made blood pour from our ears and noses. The darkness began to retreat, drawn back toward the containment chambers. We were winning. Then Hayward appeared, or something wearing Hayward's form, flanked by Walsh, Reynolds, and at least a dozen other converted personnel. They moved in perfect unison, like puppets controlled by a single mind. Before we could react, they swarmed the device, their bodies dissolving into the same liquid darkness as they made contact with it. Maddox realized what was happening first. "They're sabotaging the frequency," he shouted. "It needs to be reset from the main control panel." The control panel was on the other side of the hub, surrounded by churning shadow. Larson didn't hesitate. He grabbed the manual override module and ran straight into the darkness. I tried to follow, but Maddox and 2 operators held me back. "It's too late," Maddox yelled over the cacophony of otherworldly screams. "We have to go now or we all die here." The last I saw of Larson, he was at the control panel. Darkness flowing up his legs as he frantically input the reset sequence. His eyes met mine across the chaos, and he nodded once. Permission to leave, to survive, to tell the story. 5 of us made it out before the facility's self-destruct protocol engaged. The explosion registered as a 4.7 magnitude earthquake in nearby Las Vegas. Did we succeed? I don't know. The alignment date, July 17th, came and went without the world ending. No dimensional collapse, no invasion of shadow entities. Maybe Larson's sacrifice sealed the boundary. Maybe we bought the world more time, another 47 years until the next alignment. Or maybe we just delayed the inevitable. I see shadows differently now. Notice how they sometimes move when they shouldn't, how they sometimes seem deeper than the objects casting them. And in my dreams, I still hear the voices, whispering numbers, coordinates, patterns. They're not gone, just waiting. And I can't shake the feeling that next time, there won't be anyone left who knows the rules.